Okay, so this is our first meeting. Did did you get chapters 1 and 2 from Heather? Is that a true statement? Good. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what went wrong. She sent me an email probably a month ago to pick the textbook, and I told her what I was going to be picking, and I went ahead and went into the bookstore system for this class and put the textbook in, and then all that disappeared. Don't know. Don't have any idea what's going on, but I think they're trying to get you physical copies of the book. That's the current plan. Not sure when that's going to happen, but Heather has offered to continue to give you the PDFs or whatever she gave you. Not quite legally, but hey, we're going to get the books anyway, so that should be good. Okay. So hopefully you've had a chance to read through chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a lot of background information. Okay, so it's not things that necessarily 100% pertain to this class, but it's just a lot of background. This textbook makes the assumption that this is the first time you've ever programmed. Okay, so it's that there's that introductory stuff if you haven't programmed before. So I'm making the assumption most all of you had Python last semester with Dr. Carter. If not, I assume it was one of the prereqs that you've had some programming language somewhere. Okay, I think since most people are in Python, I will try to make my examples Python-like. But if you've done other languages, I may be familiar, may be able to translate for you. Okay. If you're coming from C++, it may be a little easier. I don't know. Python's pretty easy to move to. Okay. It's not recording. Okay. It says it's recording. Is it still recording? Let's see. Yeah, it says it's recording for me. So it was Virgil. Hopefully, I don't know, maybe something with you on your end. Oh, it wasn't when I was recording. I'm with you now. Okay. You guys can also just speak up, whatever you want to do. This is super informal. Again, the way I hope this is going to go, it's an 8-week class, so it's all summer long, almost. I will put out a video. It was more in depth this week because we didn't have the textbooks yet, but I'll give you like a heads up video, what we're looking at on Monday, and you'll read the chapter first, all that. We'll meet on Thursday or Friday. If you have questions, post them in the forum. If anybody else sees, if you know the answer, answer it. You may get there quicker than I do. And I'll try to monitor that as well and answer questions there. And then on these sessions, it'll be for any questions you have remaining in enough time. Homework's due Sunday night in time to get the homework done. Okay. So that's kind of the game.
Did you say it was only 8 weeks?
I think it's 8 weeks. Is that right? That may be wrong.
I had thought that Heather had said that they had talked about shortening it, but they were going to keep it at the 12. But I didn't know if you knew something we didn't know.
Yeah, I'm a hired gun. I'm not involved in any of those decisions. They're like, you want to teach us? Sure, I'm going to teach it. I'm looking at the course online. It seems like it was 8 weeks. I will contact her. I didn't know that was even a thing. So I just looked at the start date and the end date on the system. I think that was 8 weeks. So if we have more time, then I'll redo the entire schedule and we'll slow down a little bit. Okay. If you don't hear from me about that, send me an email because I will have totally forgotten we had this conversation. I drove a lot today. So anyway. Okay, so yeah, someone else thought it was 12 weeks, right? That's what we got. I'll check. Let's see. The schedule's out there. Does anyone know how many weeks the schedule has? Do I have 8 weeks in the schedule, or do I have 12 weeks?
I thought it said May 17th to August something. Like the first week in August.
That's really weird.
What we were told originally. And in our meeting, like what was the last Monday, they said they had talked about shortening it because of summer, but then they decided not to.
It's 12 weeks in the syllabus.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
The syllabus does have 12 weeks too.
Oh, then apparently I'm just losing my mind. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I've got it right, but didn't know that it's right. So that's good. That's better. Better to be right and not know it than to be wrong and think that you're right, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we have 12 weeks. So the schedule's correct. Life's good. I'm glad. That's really long for a summer class, but it takes some of the pressure off because I know some of you probably need a summer really bad. You may be doing other things. Me, I'm teaching 2 courses this summer. Yay. But anyway, some of you may have similar experiences. Okay, so again, chapter 1 is mostly just what's the program look like, okay? And I think the takeaway from that we need to think about is a couple of things that I'll mention briefly. Let me know if you have questions. It's this whole idea of object-oriented programming, okay? If you're coming from Python as your first language, Python, you can do objects through the class files. I don't know if you got there or not, Okay, if you didn't get the classes, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you
Yeah, we
did,
did.
good. That's a head start. Because Java, unlike Python, totally class-based. You don't write programs in Java, you write classes, okay, 100%. So all that object-oriented technology that's in chapter 1, stuff like inheritance, stuff like encapsulation, talking about the methods that a class can have, talking about the member data that it can have or the attributes that it can have. All those techniques, it mentions it in chapter 1. We're going to keep talking about them throughout. Okay, so if you read through that and you're a little fuzzy, I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Okay. The other weird thing with Java is that Java compiles to the Java virtual machine. Okay. And what that means, when you're running Python, that's your language. Python's an interpreted language, which means that it's just a text file that you could read that when you want to run it, you'll say, Python, run this file. Python will run that program right then and there. Okay. As opposed to other languages like C++. C++ is a compiled language where you have your .c or .cpp file that you compile into a .exe file that you then run on your computer, okay? Java kind of does neither of those. Java compiles, but it compiles to a Java virtual machine. So it doesn't compile to Windows, it doesn't compile to Mac, it doesn't compile to Linux, it compiles to this virtual, its own computer thing, okay? The good news there is it means that I'm on a Mac. I'm always on a Mac, almost, unless I'm on Linux, never on Windows. If you're on Windows, you can write a program and I can run it just fine, okay? That would not be true. That would be true in Python because it's interpreted. It would not be true in C++. That would be a problem, okay? The other thing we're going to struggle with if you're coming from Python is the idea that C++ is a strongly typed language. Okay, if you are in Python and you say x is equal to 5, okay, x is an integer right now. Well, now you say x is equal to Bob, x is now a string. Python's like, cool, do what you want. I think of Python as a cool mom that lets you, get drunk on the weekends, right? Java is not. Java is the super strict parent that you're going to do things my way or the highway, okay? Which means when we declare a variable, which we have to do in Java, we have to declare it before we can use it. We have to decide up front what it's going to be. And once it's that, it can be nothing else. So it's going to give you an error. Okay. The other little niggly thing is if you're coming from Python is you have to have a semicolon at the end of most lines. Okay. And, I understand why you do that. You don't have the spacing issue like you do in Python. Python is rabid about spacing and you can get a spacing error. You can't get a spacing error in Java. I still recommend that you space things out so you can see what you're doing. But the whole semicolon thing, if you get an error message saying expected a semicolon, just give me the semicolon. I don't know why they don't just fix that for you, but they don't. Okay, so we'll have to be dealing with those issues. Okay. And that's really it. Are there any specific questions about chapter 1? Other things you want me to talk about?
I had a question about the actual Eclipse.
Yes.
So being able to I don't know. I got it downloaded and it kind of looked like what yours looked like on the videos.
Okay.
But I wasn't sure how to start doing my programs in it.
Okay.
And I wasn't sure where I needed to go.
Well, let's take a look. Let me share that. I've got that. Just got that installed. Is it really there? Yeah, it's really there. Even better.
I kind of had that with the packages part as well and had to figure out how to make a package before I could make a class or something.
Yeah, it didn't make me do that the second time, but it sure did the first time.
I had no idea what to do. But I did it somehow.
Yes. But could you do it again? That's the question.
I don't know.
That gets interesting. Okay, so you guys can see my Eclipse screen now? Okay, so if you go to File, and let's say New, start with a new Java project. Okay, that's the first thing. And you're going to give it a name. You can do CFC 402, whatever you want to call it. Okay, I've already got one, so I'll put an X on the end for now. Okay, you can use a default location. Make sure you look where that's at. Okay, so this one is in the user directory. I'm on my wife's laptop, so it's in her home directory, the Eclipse workspace, then the name. Okay, so and on Windows, it's going to be different, but whatever it is, write that down somewhere so you know how to find your files. Okay. We're going to use the execution environment, the SE11. Again, that's the other problem we're going to have is that the book is a pretty recent book, but it takes a while for books to get through the editorial process. So it's using 8 and 9, and the oldest one I can get on Eclipse is 11. Okay, so that's an issue. Maybe it may not be a big issue. So pick the 11, which should be good.
We can't see that like dialogue box that you have.
Yeah, of course not. That would be too easy. Let me do this. And thanks for telling me that. I've gone in class, you know how students are. I've gone an hour and they're like, we couldn't see anything you did. I'm like, well, thank you very much. So I do appreciate when you tell me when you can't see what I'm looking. Okay. So where was that? Now it's gone. Now I can't get there. Here we are. Okay. So anyway, you give it a project name. You don't have to do that more than one time. And you have options here because it doesn't matter to me, but it's how your mind works. Okay. You can do one project for the entire semester, the entire class, or you can do by chapter. However you want to do that. Okay. And practically speaking, what that's going to do is give us a directory to put our files in. Okay. You're going to upload the .java and the .class files. I don't care where you have them. You can have them on an old floppy disk from the 80s, as far as I care. When you upload them to Moodle, I'm good with it. Okay. So it's for you to know where they are. So you have to create at least one project. Once you've done that, okay, again, you want to use the 11. Okay. I suggest that you use the project folder as the root for both the source and the class files. If not, you're going to have under that users, blah, 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 workspace, the project name, you're going to have a bin directory and an SRC directory. You have to go to both places to upload them to Moodle. Okay, so I would recommend doing it this way. Okay, and then once you've done that, you just hit enter down at the bottom to finish, and it should create it for you. Okay, so once you've done that, and when you go to create a new file, it's then create new class. We don't create programs, we create classes. Okay.
Do you know offhand, sorry, if
No, you're
you, like when I created mine, I did this separate, I think. Can you edit it?
I don't know. It's probably easier to create a new one unless
Okay.
you've done a bunch. And if not, it's just an extra step when you're uploading, and it doesn't matter to me at all.
Okay.
Okay. So for this one, let's see. And this is not my computer, so it looks weird. Usually it gives you a source folder. Okay, I have to pick one of these. So I'm going to pick the 402. Okay, and then I'm just not going to worry about the package at all. See if that's okay. I'm going to come down here. It's going to be a public. We may have other things later. Let's just call this test 2 because I already had a test I was working on. So I just installed this. And again, you want to click this public static void main string args. I mean, you don't have to, you can type it in yourself, but that's probably what you want. Okay. Then you click on finish, and there you go. Okay. That's your starter set. Okay. And then again, to recreate the hello world, once you are at this point, the 2 slashes are for comments. You can do the system.out.print line, whatever you want. Okay. And again, make sure the semicolon at the end. For some reason, this is giving us some weird warning, auto-generated methods. I don't know why that's doing. Oh, that's where there's that before. Don't worry about that. It's not a warning. It's a warning, it's a caution, not a warning. Nothing's in red here. If you did this, now it's in red. And it's going to tell you basically need a semicolon. Okay. Or if you had a missing quote, that's also going to give you an error. Although it doesn't I don't know what it's from where I got rid of that other line. It's unhappy, but that's the basic idea. Okay. Again, you can do things the way you like. This is the Java style. I tend to be a C++ guy more, so I tend to make it look like that. I think it reads easier. Do what you want. Matters not to me. Okay. And then again, you can just hit the green arrow to run. The first time it'll ask you if you want to save it. And one of the options the first time is to always save it automatically. I've clicked that, so it automatically saves it. And you see here at the bottom is where it's going to run. So down here, the hello here is what was generated. Okay, and I don't know how to get rid of that. Okay. Are there other questions about Eclipse? And I think that you do it a few times, that's going to become second nature. But that's the idea. Create a project and then create a new class, have it generate the public static void main, and then you should be good to go. Okay.
Yeah, with regards to Eclipse, have you found a setting to turn off where it automatically generates the closed brackets? It's been driving me crazy.
I haven't looked for that because I'm okay with that because I'm always forgetting those. It's probably there somewhere through the settings, but I haven't looked. Send me an email. I'll try to find it if you can't find it.
Alright.
Or better yet, post it on the forum and maybe somebody else will see it before I do. Okay.
Yeah, it's not so much the curly brackets, but the way it handles the close quote, close parentheses, like on the print lines.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
The way it handles it is very strange.
Yeah, it is very strange. I agree. Yeah, I don't tend to use an editor much like this. I use more of a command line, but I'm not making you guys do that. I thought about it. I'm like, no, you guys have suffered enough this year. So we're going to make it a little easier. Okay. But then to find that, you just have to go to your computer. And this is not my computer, so I'll have to figure out how I'm going to get back there. Let's do a new Finder window. Yeah. Okay. So you can always search for Eclipse workspace. That's what it's called. And it's not going to find it, even though I know it's there.
You spelled Eclipse wrong.
Of course I did. Sounds like something. Let's just look for the Eclipse. Yeah, that's the message file. I don't know what it's trying to do. I guess I can go to documents. And then from there, I want to be able to go backwards. Yeah, this isn't my Mac, so it's hard for me to, I can't see the path backwards, which is really weird. Okay, let's look at, if I can find a .java file. Those aren't .java files. That's what I call a test2. .java. Okay, so it found it. And then from here, this is a totally long way to go around it. I can show it in closing folder. There we go. So now we're in the directory. This is what I want to show you, that we've got the class file and we've got the Java file. Okay. So the Java file, as you can see over here, and that's hard to see, I know it's small. The Java file, and now I made it totally go away. That was helpful. The Java file contains the program. It's the plain text. The class file will contain, machine language to run the Java virtual compiler or virtual machine. Okay. So you would take both of these in.
So when we turn it in, do we attach the Java file only?
No, both.
Both?
Yes.
Okay.
Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to run the class file. If it works, I'm done
Mhm.
for the most part. But if it doesn't work, I'll have to look through the Java file to see, see what went wrong, basically. Okay.
And if we're doing a new assignment, like a separate assignment, do we still keep putting it underneath that same, like a topic, the CSC?
I think that
that's fine, right? We just create a class every time.
Yeah, I think that's what I would do, because
Mhm.
the way I want you to name the homework is going to be by default or by practice, we use a capital letter for classes. So it'll be a capital C, whatever chapter, big or little p, don't care, program name. Okay, so there shouldn't be confusion. You can have one project file that contains everything you do all class if you want. And then like the ones this time will be like
Okay.
capital C2 for chapter 2, no space, no anything, capital P25 .java. So that's, chapter 2 problem 25. If we keep up that nomenclature, we'll all be clearer in our heads as to what's going on. Okay.
Okay.
And then once you find them, you can just drag them over into Moodle and it will upload them and life should be good. Okay. Are there other Eclipse questions? Okay. Anything else from chapter 1 before we start talking about chapter 2?
So I'm struggling with using the actual command prompt part.
Okay.
At first, it was because I didn't have like the what was it, the problem or the I don't know, I didn't have something downloaded, one of the zip files from the chapter
Right.
and the examples. And then I had 16, which was not 11, so that wasn't working together. So I need to play with it a little bit more, but I think I have 11 and I'm still getting errors.
The command line's a pain. I've always found it to be a pain. I wouldn't do it that way unless you just really, really are a masochist and want that. If you run it through Eclipse, it shouldn't give you any trouble.
Okay, so like when it's telling us to do the command problems in the book, are we gonna need to continue to try to do those or not? Like the painter thing?
Oh, yeah, we should. That's a good question, but we're not there yet. So we'll worry about that later, if that makes sense. Yeah, there are some things. Oh, it wants us to do, it wanted to do that demo, didn't it?
Right.
Yeah, let me do a video because it's a pain because you got to set your Java class file and it's ugly.
Okay, I tried.
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
is.
succeed.
It's ugly. And I don't think, because it doesn't give you the Java file there, does it? It just gives you the class.
But I was going around in circles and then I finally said, I'm done here.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I go to Eclipse. I'm not usually an IDE fan, but
and I'm also in Windows, whereas you're on a Mac. So it looks different in your command prompt than my command prompt.
that's for sure. Yeah, that's a real pain. If they give you the Java file, you can always pull that into Eclipse and run it from there. Even though it's a graphics file. But if they just give you the class file, then we'll have to find a workaround.
Okay.
I'll try to find some good, succinct instructions for Windows and for the Mac to get that working. I do have a Windows computer, but yeah, but for the homework so far, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to go directly into Eclipse and it should be good.
Okay, I was just trying to get everything figured out before we launch headfirst into everything.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, let me look at that a little bit more. Send me an email or post something on the forum so I won't forget.
I did. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I haven't looked at any forum posts today. I meant to look at, but I just got here, so I haven't. So you may have to ask again. Other questions about Eclipse or about anything from chapter 1 or the basics of what we're doing? Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about chapter 2. So chapter 2 is actual starting the program. Okay, and we're going to do. It's kind of a grab bag in this chapter. We first talk about doing the output. Okay, where in Python we just do a print. That's it. No such luck when we're in Java. Okay, there's a hierarchy of objects. The good news is kind of like Python, but even more so in some ways. There's this massive set of built-in programs for you to use. Okay, utilities and all those things. But to get to them in Java, you have to do a bunch of dot this, dot that. Okay. So to do a simple print, we have options, but the one that has a new line character automatically is the system.out.println for print line. You then put a string there, okay? And that's the first thing they tell us. You could also, and then that's what it runs at the bottom. We could also, if we want other variants here, or the system.out. Just a print by itself, okay? If you do one of those, you won't notice it here, but it's going to keep the cursor on the same line. Okay, so that's going to run those together. Okay. Okay, because it doesn't do a new line. You could make it, if you decide you don't want to ever type in ln, you can just do that. Does it go there? Maybe. It's been a while since I've done Java. Does that work? No, I didn't think as soon as I did it. I think it goes here. I think there's a way to do it. No, it doesn't like that either. Maybe it's a comma. Yeah, I find Java a bit fiddly sometimes. I thought we did that before, but maybe not. I don't know what it's doing. Now it's annoying me. You're gonna see me get annoyed at Java sometimes. Yeah, it doesn't like that. So don't try to do that. There is a way to do that somewhere. It should be the percent in. I don't know what it's doing. Weird. But we have the print line does it automatically. We have, because it's not a printf. Printf does that. Okay. The other way that we're going to use it, again, if you're coming from the C++ background, this makes more sense. And that's the printf. Okay. the printf takes two things, okay? It first takes a control or a format string, okay? And this is what you want the output to look like, but you can have variables within the line, okay? So if I want to, let's declare a variable first before we do the printf. So I guess we'll stop that and talk about variables. I could do an int for an integer, n is equal to 12, okay? And life's good. Then I can do something like this and say, your number is %d. D is a digit, okay? It's for an integer, okay? I then have to put a comma, I have to fill in that blank with an n, okay? And then put a semicolon. So when this runs, it's going to print out what's in the quotes, your number is, but it's going to replace this %d with the first thing that it hits, okay? And we'll see that later, that you can do more than one thing at a time. You can do strings there, whatever you want to do, okay? So now when we run that, that's going to print that in this way, which is a nice feature. So the printf will become your friend, I think, as we go along, okay? So we have integers, there are also floats, there are strings, there are lots of other variables we're going to hit. So far, we've just had integers, okay? Are there questions about this so far? Okay, so the next thing is input, okay? You want the user to be able to input something, okay? And for that, we're going to have to import a class. And again, we import stuff a bunch in Python as well, but this one we're going to import the java.util.scanner, okay, semicolon, okay? So let's think about, we haven't done anything to our program yet, except to say, there's this library, or there's this object called scanner. We want to be able to get to it now. That's all we've done, okay? We can't use the scanner yet because we have to instantiate it. Again, everything's a class. There's a scanner class. We're going to need an object of type scanner. If you watch my video with my little cookie man, my gingerbread man, and the artwork was top notch, just so you know. If you haven't seen it, you should just for that. We need a cookie, right? We can't use a cookie cutter in order to do scanning. We have to have a cookie, okay? So before I do any of this, or I guess it doesn't matter, before I use it, I have to create, and just like we said, int n, scanner is going to be the type of object we're creating, okay? We're going to call it input, okay? But we need to run the constructor. Every class should have a constructor that creates objects of that type, okay? We use the new keyword to get us a new one. It's a scanner, and this constructor takes where is the data coming from. So right now we're just doing system.in, okay? So input now after this line is going to be a scanner object that is waiting to get information from the standard input, system.in, which is the keyboard, and it's going to transfer it to whatever's on the other side of the equal sign, okay? Are there questions on that, on the scanner? You have to first, and again, I made the mistake in the video, it can't be inside of the public class file. It's got to be before anything you're going to import, okay? You may see folks doing things like this, java.util.star, which is going to get the entire util. Don't do that. That's bad programming. It's going to make your file way too big. It's going to include every utility program. So this is the correct way to do that, okay? So now that we have that, we still can't really do anything, okay? So now we have to look at one of the methods. So now input is an instance of the scanner class. It's a cookie, right? So we can do something with it. We can eat the cookie. We can use a cookie, okay? So I can use it in here, and I'm going to prepend it here, say input dot, okay? The input has methods that we can use, okay? You see a list there. There's hash code, next int, and ratex, next byte, next short, all kinds of stuff. We're going to use the next int, okay? The next int is going to take an integer from the keyboard and transfer it over to the variable we're calling in, okay? Remember, variables aren't really variables in a math sense. They're not unknowns. What this really is a label to a spot in memory, okay? We want to store something there. It's a box with an address, and we're going to send something to that box at that address. Okay. But again, one thing I mentioned in the other video, one of the big differences with Java and C++ is that we don't ever know the name of that address. That would be a pointer. We don't do pointers in Java. Okay. There are pointers in Java, but they're not programmer accessible. Okay. So when I say this line, int n, it's a new integer, okay, called in. It's going to go to the scanner object input. It's going to run the next int to grab from the keyboard. It's going to wait for the keyboard to enter a number. It's going to send it in there. What if you send it something that's not an int? It's going to give you an error. Okay. So at this point, we're not doing any error checking. We can. There's plenty of ways to do that. For right now, we're just trusting, which is not a good idea. Okay. So the other part that I always forget, you saw me forget this in the video. You have to prompt the user first. So I do a system.out. I'm going to use print here because I want to keep it on the same line. Say something like enter a number, colon, space, because that's literally what's going to appear. And wait with the little blinking cursor for me to enter a number. Okay. So now if I run all this, what this should do, it should, it instantiates a scanner called input, which we can use again and again as many times as we want. Okay. And from that, we're going to print out a prompt, enter a number on the screen. It's going to wait until the user enters something, types in a number, hits enter. As long as it's valid, it's going to set n equal to that number. It's then going to print it out. Okay, see if it works. Okay, so there, click down here, enter a number, enter a 6. Your number is 6. Okay. Questions on that input output? So, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
When I have, so I see that yours has it too, but so like your line 6 has the little warning next
Yes.
to it, or, mine is kind of like trying to tell me that I need it enclosed in something else.
Yeah, I get that too. And I'm guessing that's a version issue. I'm gonna have to look it up. I don't know.
Okay.
It
I
never
think I'm in
causes
version
trouble.
9.
Okay. It never causes an error that doesn't compile. It's like C++ has input streams that you're supposed to close the stream. It's like that's what it's doing, but I don't know. Let's go totally rogue. And what if I do like an input?
All you need to do is type input.close somewhere towards the end and it fixes it. I found that out yesterday.
See, I was going to do that and be cool, and you just took my thunder there. No, that's what I figured I would do.
And I put in comments that I'm including it even though it's not in chapter 2.
Yes, and that's a version issue. Yeah, that logically makes sense. I'm glad you brought that up. So that does fix it. That's just.
Do you do it at the end before you close the main part?
You do it when you're done using it.
So done with input.
Yeah, so I would put it at the end just so you don't have to worry about it. But yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, the book doesn't mention that because I'm guessing that wasn't a thing in Java 8. It's my guess. Okay.
And I know this is probably a silly question. I've tried to start actually doing it, but see where it says public static void main, is that just something that automatically comes up when you create a class, or do you type that in?
You can type it in, but when you do a file new class,
Oh, okay.
there's a checkbox right here.
Oh,
If you check that, it adds it
so
automatically.
we always need to check that.
For that, not forever in the history of the world, but in this class for now at least, everything will have a public static void main.
Okay.
And again, you can type it every time
Okay.
if you want, or just click that box and you'll be fine. Okay.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. So now we can input things. Now we can print them out. The rest of the book, this chapter 2, talks about once you have numbers, doing arithmetic. Okay. And I think that's pretty straightforward, but are there questions on that, how that works? I can say something here like n is equal to n plus 5, and that would be fine. Okay. I can do anything I want there. It has a normal, the precedence of operators is like it always is. The PIMBUS or whatever that little acronym you probably teach your kids. Parentheses, exponentiation, which we haven't covered yet, and then multiplication, division, and then addition, subtraction, with those pairs at the same level of precedence. And if all else fails, it goes left to right. So it works just like Python does in that sense. You can
Does-
always add parentheses if you want.
Does Java allow the little shortcuts with the arithmetic like C++? Like you could, like that line could say n plus equals 5.
I don't think so,
But what
but I
about,
haven't tried.
and there was also like plus plus to just increment by 1.
Oh, it apparently does. It must like that. Yeah. Yep. So I will know what you mean if you do that. You certainly don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're taking a complicated algorithmic function, I like to put parentheses around numerator, denominator, and just keep it straight that way. It's weird to stretch them out to one line, but it should be relatively straightforward. Okay. There's a weird thing. And the weird thing relates to the homework problem about getting the individual digits. Okay. And that's if we take n's an integer. If I divide it by 5, let's say, let's do something easier. Sorry about 2. Okay. N has to remain an integer. Okay. So if I run this and enter a 4, what's 2? It's 2, right? We're good. If I run it again, I don't lose my way. And this time I enter a 5. So it gives me a 2. Okay. It does that because it can't contain the decimal portion. Goes away. Okay. So you have to make sure you understand that if you're doing a program to get, miles per hour or anything where you need a fraction, you can't leave it as an integer. Okay. It's going to take by default. No, that's not correct. That's a Python thing. It's n is an integer. N will always be an integer, no matter what. Okay. If we made an n a float, then we could have a decimal portion. We'd be okay. Okay. But what this also allows us to do, we can also, in addition to the division, okay, we can get the remainder. Okay. So I could do the mod, which comes in super handy. And this is the whole even odd problem again, right? If you do the mod 2, okay, then it will tell us if there's a remainder of 0, we know that the number must have been even. If there's a remainder of 1, the number was odd. Okay. Questions about any of the math section of that?
You put, instead of integer in, you put float in?
Yep.
If you wanted,
And then next float over here. Okay. Now if I run this, enter a 4. Oh, it blows up. Maybe it needs an explanation or it needs an exponential.
No, it's because you're using %d in your printf.
Oh, that's what I'm doing. Good eyes. Got to be %f, isn't it? Is it f? Do you remember?
It is f and like point number if you want it to limit the number of decimals.
Yeah, it'll just be ugly. Okay, so here if I enter a 4, gives me a 2. That's the default number of things there. And now if I run it again and enter a 5, it gives me a 2.5, which is what I would expect. Okay.
oh, okay.
You can convert, you can upcast and all that stuff, but we're not there yet. So we won't worry about that yet. Other questions about arithmetic? Okay. Then the last thing we're going to do is just simple if statements. Not if then, not if else, not anything else, just an if. Okay. And for the ifs, if I can get back to where I'm at here, it's just a matter of we're going to do if some condition, okay, n greater than 100, for example, okay, then put in my brackets, then I can print out something, do whatever I want, okay. These can get more complicated later with ands and ors, but we're not there yet. We're just keeping it simple, okay. Remember, if you want to test equality, it has to be 2 equal signs. 1 equal sign is going to give you an error, which is good. I think it's in Python. It runs, but it runs inconsistently, and it's always true. Okay, so 1 equal sign up here is assignment. So we're saying we're assigning to the input memory location the result of all this stuff. Okay. 2 equal signs are asking the question, are these equal? Okay. And I think that's it for this chapter, right? I think I've got everything in here. Are there questions about any of that material from that chapter?
I have one more. I'm sure it's probably a silly question. I'm sorry, I've only read chapter 1 really thoroughly,
Okay, that's fine.
but those curly brackets, what are their purpose?
Okay, what they're doing, and this is why that Java doesn't care about spacing. Okay, in Python we know things are in a structure because of the spacing. Okay, that's not what this is. What this is saying is that the brackets here relate to. Let me put something in here so it's not stupid looking. Yes, what? I don't know. Just wanted to do something. Okay, so this, we start here. Again, I don't like them here. I like them there. Okay,
Mhm.
this is going to start the public class test2. Okay, this bracket here
Okay.
is going to end it. So I can put in here end class. Okay, this bracket is going to.
So they have to line up with it, right?
They don't have to line up. You should line them up for your
Uh-huh.
sanity. They don't have to. They can be wherever you want. Java doesn't care.
Okay.
What Java cares about are opening brackets and closing brackets. Okay. And then we have here, this is going to end our if block. Okay. So from beginning to end, this is a block. Okay. And that denotes the block membership. Okay. And then this is a block, a bigger block that contains the main function. And then this is a block that contains the entire class. Okay. So
Okay.
it uses that instead of doing spaces. It's so how you know what belongs. Okay. So if we had a line,
Okay.
if we had a line here, it's spaced over. So in Python, it would be part of that if, right? It's not. So this is not part of if. Okay. It would have to be inside of those curly brackets. Curly brackets are optional. If there's only one line, I like them anyway. Okay. I could just say this, I think, and Java is not my favorite language. It's got its use. I do a lot more in C++ and Python than I do Java. So sometimes I'm going to do something dumb, but I think that is okay. Okay. Because there's no ambiguity. Just that one line is part of the if, and it didn't give any red, so I think I'm okay. I don't like that. Okay, I think it's confusing. I think as a beginning programmer especially,
So
I want to see the brackets.
we don't have to indent a certain way, like in Python we had to indent a certain way, but in Java we don't have to.
Here's something that if you're a Python programmer, you'll go insane, right? That would crash the program. It wouldn't run. Java don't care. It would run just fine.
Okay, good. Okay. That's good. So see like
And-
indent error, indent error.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like,
And
"Oh."
again, you can do this. You're going to make me have a stroke here because my OCD is going to go insane. But you could literally write your whole program like this. If you do, one of us has got to go. I don't know if it's going to be you or me, but somebody's got to leave this class if you start doing this. But yeah, this is
I'm
perfect.
sure I'll indent just because Python trained me to indent everything.
And Eclipse does it for you
Okay.
automatically, which makes it easy.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, this is all just fine. This hurts me in very spiritual ways, I think. Okay, but yeah, you're right. It's fine. There's no, yeah, don't do this. Don't be this person. I won't take points off directly. In fact, if you do this, you'll probably be okay, but it'll make me grumpy. The next person, I'll be harder on them. So
You'll just lose brownie points.
that's right. I will lose respect for you as a programmer if you
Yeah.
do.
So what you're saying is don't put everything on one line as long as our semicolons are in the right place.
No, in fact, you probably could even pull things up even worse. You could probably pull all this together in one big line. That's my guess.
That's I did that in a C programming class one time.
Yeah, that's fine. They're like, good, we're cool with that. Yeah, I'm not cool with that. No, don't be that guy or gal. Poor. Ugh, ugly. Okay. Other questions about the material from chapter 2? And don't ever apologize about questions. You guys apologize. My students do that. I'm sorry to bother you. No, my job's to be bothered by you. You know, you're teachers. You know that. So never feel bad, because I'm afraid if you feel bad, Dana, I mean, if you feel bad, you may not ask a question. Always ask the question. Okay. I will not laugh at
Thank
you.
you. I'm just afraid they're probably okay.
I guarantee someone else has that question and they're afraid to ask.
Okay.
It's not a problem. You've never asked me a dumb question. I don't think you're going to start. Okay. Any questions about the material?
I have a question, and it's more about how much commenting should we be doing in our programs? Like, I feel like I over commented at the beginning of Python.
Yeah.
She didn't say anything, but I feel like I did.
Yep. What I like to see, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mentioned it in the video, but I need to mention it again. You need at least at the top some kind of a program block, okay, which should have at a minimum, what's the program name? Although you should spell it correctly or type it correctly. It should have a brief description, I before E, but that's not right either. Oh, there it is. This took it a while. Even the spell check. A brief description, if that's needed. If it's an even or odd program, I'm not sure. The program's going to tell you it's determined if a number is even or odd. You may need that. As they get more complicated, you will need your name in case it gets separated from everybody else. Not bad to have a date. Okay. And then down here, it depends on the program. So other stuff as needed. If you're using a formula of some sort that you're not sure, or that you're sure that, or you suspect not everybody in the world knows, go ahead and put that in here. Any assumptions that you're making, that's fine. Okay. I did, and I assume there may be questions in a minute about breaking out the digits. I put in labels to separate out, okay, I'm getting the thousands, I'm getting the hundreds, just for me to break it up. Okay. I'm not likely to grade you on that stuff. And unless if there's a line of code that you're afraid I won't understand. Java's bad about building a whole bunch of stuff into one line. So a comment before that, if it took you a while to figure out what it means, put a comment for yourself next time, and it'll help me when I'm grading it too. But I don't really have, besides the block at the beginning, I don't have any great number of requirements for that. But for your benefit, comment where you may be confused later. You think I'll always remember that? No, you won't remember. You know how it is. You won't remember anything. You guys are old enough to have learned that you don't remember anything unless you write it down somewhere. So that's what I would say. Does that answer your question about commenting? Okay. Anything else? We can talk about homework if you want to talk about homework. If you've gotten that far. If you have any questions on any of the homework problems.
No questions. I'm just going through and taking out all the else's that I had.
Yeah. Yeah, the homework says to use only what we know, which I'm guessing, I haven't done the largest and smallest yet, but I'm guessing that's a pain. Without
The largest and the smallest is actually really easy.
Okay.
And on that one, I had just said else if, so I just had to delete the else and didn't change the program.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the digit one may be confusing. I don't know, but if you haven't got there yet, then you wouldn't know that it's confusing. But
This, you mean splitting the digits?
splitting the digits, yeah.
Oh.
But that's going to rely on that integer division we talked about, and it's going to rely on the modulo. Okay, so I guess I'll give that as a hint. Okay, so again, if we have, that's just too ugly. I gotta switch something else. Oh, this is it. I started that program. Here's the simple version. I'll show it real quick and I'll move it. The idea basically that when you take a number 1, 2, 3 and divide it by 100, okay, what it's going to return would normally be 1.23, but since it's an integer, it just returns that first digit, right? So that's what you want. You divide by 100, then by 10, and then you don't need to divide by 1 because that's just the same number, okay? But then once you've done that, you have to mod that number, okay? So this 123 mod 100 gets rid of the 100s and has just a 23, okay?
No.
So this is the progression for getting the digits out.
I didn't even think about doing like shrinking the number. I just calculated calculated 5 different steps what to print.
Yes, you can do that, but this is the easier way, I think. Okay, and it's
I did mine similar to yours, but also still different. Like I started with actually the ones place and then went that way and
Oh wow!
like
Can you go that way?
subtract. I did and like subtracted it out and like it's pretty short and brief. Like every time I'm only dividing by 10.
How weird. Oh, that makes sense, but that seems wrong to me. It's funny, you're a math person. Someone does it, you're like, whoa! You almost like physically recoil. You're like, whoa! You can't go that way. But no, if it works, I'm happy. But yeah, in my mind, I'm going to pick them off from the left. If you pick them off from the right, that's okay.
Well, actually, that is basically what I did. I just did it in one step instead of like a separate step where you're like modding it in the second step like you did.
Yep.
Okay. So actually, that is what I did. Never mind.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I started with the mod and then did the division afterwards.
Right. I mean, that's why you went backwards.
Yeah.
The remainder and then lopping off the other. It's all
Yeah.
It's all fine. Okay. And this is only with 3 digits, and I'm not doing an input, and I didn't put it wanted the 3 spaces between. I'm not real picky about things like that unless it's something that matters. That's not something that matters. Okay. Any questions on any other homework stuff? Okay. If you have questions later, then make sure that you post them on the forum, and I will try to take a look. Again, I'm out of town, so I may not be as quick to get to stuff this weekend as I normally would, but I'm normally around. So if you post it in the forum and you don't hear from me like in a day or 2, that's kind of weird. Text me. My phone number is on the syllabus. You can text me and I will get back to you at some point pretty quickly usually. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about?
Do you know how to unupload something from Moodle so I can replace the ones that would have else's with the ones that I just took them out?
Does it not let you just do it again?
Well, I don't know, maybe. Edit submission, let me see.
I would think you could just upload it again.
It was override them. Okay.
That would be okay.
All right.
Usually you can just hit edit submission and it'll let you resubmit it even after the due date, usually, like if you needed to.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Moodle uploads files outrageously slow.
And one thing I mentioned, I think in one of the videos, but I'll say it again. No, I won't. Never mind, wrong class. I was going to say, if you want to download it to your computer, but you're doing it on your computer. Yeah, that's for see, I'm teaching 2 classes and I'm in 2 languages. I will be a wreck, just so you know. If I start typing C++, just say wrong class. And, it must be like speaking different languages, that it's a different part of your brain. I probably told you the story before, but I had a friend in high school whose dad was from Argentina. And he was an international finance guy for a big corporation. And if you called his house, he knew like 7 languages. He would answer in whatever the last language he was speaking in was. And when you would speak to him in English, he couldn't figure out you were speaking to him in English. He would have to cycle through different languages until he hit upon English. And I thought that was the weirdest thing. But I understand now, knowing multiple programming languages, it's almost like your worldview is in one language. And when someone asks you a question, you're like, you have to like click into a different spot. So if I start doing stuff that's in C++, if I do a C out, just yell at me that I'm in the wrong language and we'll be okay. Although since I teach C++ more, I'm more likely to have it bleed the other way. My poor data structure students will have me being in Java half the time. So we'll all work it out. Okay. Anything else we need to talk about? Okay. Congratulations on surviving the worst year of your lives, probably teaching. Hopefully next year will be better. Anyway. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close it down then. And that was about an hour. That's about right. We'll go a little longer if we need to. If you haven't got the programs done yet, I'd go ahead and work on those sooner rather than later, so you'll have time to ask some questions. They're not super rocket sciencey this time, but again, if it stumps you, it stumps you. And I think the answers will be easy to fix since our programs aren't long. But yeah, make sure, don't just not get it. I mean, let me know if you're not getting it. We'll figure it out. Okay. Okay, talk to you guys later then. Have a good rest of your evening.